Hi kids. Okay, so a little while ago I thought it'd be fun for us to do some painting on leaves, and I started trying to paint on some of the dry leaves that were in the yard, and they cracked and broke apart pretty badly, just with any pressure. So I said, all right, well, that's not going to work. And then the other day, our mulberry tree started dropping its leaves, and so I had fresh leaves, and I used the microwave technique to flatten them out and dry them. So if you don't remember the microwave drying technique from one of my previous videos, it's pretty simple. You take the leaves or flowers or whatever it is you're going to press, put it inside of like a cloth napkin, um, paper towel would work, and then put something on top of it to weight it down and put it into the microwave. And you could do 30-second intervals. I just went ahead and did like a minute, minute and a half. And then when they come out, the moisture is gone and they're flat. So now I have at least a flatter surface to work on for my leaf painting. But I really want to stress to students that are about to do this project that a lot of my leaves broke. This was like a difficult project that required a lot of patience and understanding that it's not going to come out exactly the way you want, and it's not going to make it through more than one season. So if you're working on this, this is a fun activity to have for right now. Maybe it can go up. I'm making a wall hanging with mine, and it might last for a little bit, but it's not permanent, and there's no way to get through all the leaves intact. Okay, so once you understand that and you're still like, yep, I'm doing it, okay, then we'll do this. You will need the ability to dry leaves flat. So you'll need some fresher leaves and then a microwave. And when you have your leaves flat, you'll need some paint. Now, I used white acrylic paint on mine, and then I tried a whole bunch of different techniques on top. It included washable markers that then I wet and kind of used like a watercolor, and it also included watercolor um, and Sharpies. So I used metallic Sharpie for some, and I used the black Sharpie on one. The Sharpies aren't great on this because you really can't press into it to get the kind of line design that you want because you'll crack the leaf. So again here, your expectations, right? You're just sort of playing around and making these leaves beautiful, but your design might not come out exactly the way you want. For example, my watercolors aren't good. I don't have good watercolors, and so I didn't get bright, vibrant colors out of them. And the markers, I'm going to show you how to use that. You're not really drawing a design with those either, because then when you wet it, the design will sort of blend, right, and smear out. So what I have here is I have leaves, I have tissue paper to put the leaf down on. I'll show you how I paint it. I made a painted stick for the top of my wall hanging. This is why you have a colorful stick icon also on Fun Friday for an older tutorial that I did on just some ideas for painting sticks. I have a little container of water for my brush and for the watercolor. I have the markers in the colors that I'm going to use. These are washable markers. I have a black and metallic Sharpie in case, and two paintbrushes. I have a watercolor paintbrush, which is very soft, and then I have a different paintbrush for my acrylic paint. Now this, you don't have to have two different brushes, but the soft brush for watercolor is a great idea, because if you use a hard brush when you're using your watercolors, you'll scoop too much paint, and you don't want to do that. You want that to be a very gentle touch. So then, let me show you some of what I made. So these are the ones that I'm actually going to put into the wall hanging. I made a series of 7 that have a similar look to them. And they are all white paint, so part of it is, right, the natural leaf. And then I went along the edge. Well, no, I used the white paint in kind of an organic line. And then I went along the edge with the gold metallic. And then I used both the watercolor, it's really too bright, you can't see that at all, the watercolor and the marker to get the colors on here that I wanted. And so these are the ones that I'm going to hang. And in order to hang them, I have very thin thread. Of course, you could use, yarn or string. It's just that the leaves are, they're delicate, and I didn't want something very like big and bulky tied around them. But anything would do to get these to hang if you want to hang them. If you don't want to hang them, don't. They could look really pretty just, like being, laid across the napkin of everyone's setting at the table if you're going to sit down to eat, especially for your holiday meal. Like that could be really beautiful. They could be part of the centerpiece, like where you kind of work them into other objects that you have, and it's very autumnal. I chose not to use autumnal colors for this because we had done so much with the fall colors so far. So here is, let me see if I can turn this light so that you can see this better. Does that help a little bit? This has the gold edge around it, and then I'm going to kind of show you how to do this. This one was with the marker and the water. This one was with marker and watercolor, marker, Sharpie, and watercolor. This one was watercolor, and then I went over it with the gold Sharpie. This one was where I used the black Sharpie. You could make really cool designs on them, and then I worked a little bit of the warm purple in through it. And here was just the paint and the metallic marker. And so I'm going to paint this one to show you how I do it, and then I'm going to design this one to show you how I do it. So let's take a look here. Okay, so for the painting part, you will save yourself a little bit of hassle if you paint from the inside outward, because the more times you pull in with the brush, the more likely you are to break the edges of your leaf. So what I did was I just held down the leaf. I have a napkin underneath it. And yes, it did sometimes get kind of painted and stuck to the napkin, so you do kind of have to be careful. But I went right up to the edge with my paint, and that way I'm not like pulling the edges of the leaf back in and breaking them. Let me put a little bit more on here. Now, if you wanted to use a different color paint, I think that'd be awesome. Like, it doesn't have to be white. Maybe you're skipping the markers and watercolors altogether, and you already have colorful craft paint in the house, and you just want to paint the leaves with that craft paint. That could look really beautiful. I think the white will help the colors to show up, so you're not painting directly onto a green, but I didn't do it that way. And if you don't have white, but you do have, red or something, go right ahead. I think that might be really pretty. And then I painted on the stem just because I wanted to, but you don't have to. And I did 2 coats. So I kind of waited, it dries very quickly, and then I did a second coat. Now once I have this, let me show you 1 or 2 things you could do. I think painting on it with watercolor is kind of self-explanatory, so I'll demo the markers. What I did for the markers was, now look, this is the gentlest touch, kids. Like, I'm just sort of letting this marker scoot along. I'm using the edge of the marker and just sort of, I'm not pressing too hard, because if I do, I really will like crack the leaf, and nobody wants that. And if your markers are dried out, you won't get a whole lot of pigment, but you will still get some, and it'll be, like a light pastel color. So I'll use these 2 colors and see how there's no like pattern or anything on there, but then I'm just going to take some water, and these are washable markers, and that's why this works. This won't work with regular markers. And then I can kind of pull the pigment loose and move it around. I'll get a little bit more water, not too much water because you don't need it. And then I'll work some of the purple out here. And then once this is dry, you can really easily do another coat. It will loosen the first coat and work it in. It won't, nothing here is permanent. That's pretty. All right, and then I would just set that aside to dry. I wish you could see this better. My lighting situation is not great. Lighting and sound around here are not great, but hopefully you get the idea. So I would set that aside to dry, and then I would just work on all of them. Like I said, I made 7, and I'm going to hang them from this branch, and I will show you what that looks like when I'm done. All right, have fun. Okay, kids, so here's what I have made. I took each of my leaves and I tied a black thread to them, and then I tied them to my branch, and I decided to use this kind of V shape so that, because I had 7, so my middle one was the lowest, and then of course once they're against the wall they'll all face forward, but until then they're just spinning around. Anyway, I had a lot of fun with this, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope you make some beautiful decorative leaves. Take care, kids.